To me, the word like creativity and authenticity like go sort of hand in hand. I've realized that creativity is more about your imagination. It takes a lot more confidence and courage like to pull back and find your own style and figure out like how you can add something different to the world. And that imagination is what I would suggest other artists to be pushing when it comes to it. It's less even about the finished product in my eyes, which is why I think play and practicing is so important. And that's where the real creativity comes in. The more pressure you add, the less it happens. There's always a correlation when if I stop working out or stop exercising for my mental health, like I'll just be like, I'm just like not feeling very motivated, or everything seems to drop off.
Phoebe Hughes, thank you so much for joining me here on the Artifacts podcast. I'm thrilled to have you in conversation. Thanks so much for joining.
Of course, I'm so excited.
Amazing. Well, first, who would you like to dedicate this conversation to?
God, what a good question. Hadn't even thought. Probably my parents, just because they're probably my biggest supporters when it comes to my art. So yeah, I'm gonna shout out my mom and my dad.
Oh, that's amazing. That's such a blessing, like to have your parents supporting you and they have ushered you on this journey. It's such a blessing. And, you know, we need it as artists. We need
Totally. I
that
was
support.
gonna say, it's definitely, it's one of those jobs that is not for the weak of heart kind of
Ah,
thing. And so there's been many
100%.
times where I feel very wobbly often, and it's quite nice to have, you know, my mom and my dad there cheering me on, telling me to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Like as your biggest fans, right?
For sure, for
It
sure.
makes such a huge difference. Let's jump in because I want to talk to you about your practice, your path, your journey, your beginning as an artist, your identity as a Bermudian. Let's jump right into it. Can you talk a little bit about your journey from Bermuda to London and how this transition has shaped you as an artist?
Definitely. I think the transition was probably easier for me because I went to boarding school in the UK. I studied down in Eastbourne, like close to Brighton. And so I went to fine art school in London. And so I've sort of been here for almost 10 years. I had a brief stint where I like had moved back to Bermuda. I actually didn't want to be an artist after art school at all. Like I was like veto. Yeah. I was like, I quit. Like I really, really did not enjoy art university and I was a little bit lost kind of thing. And so I had gone home to save money to go traveling and then COVID hit. And obviously the travel plans were like completely kaput. So
Yeah.
I decided maybe I was going to reclaim what it meant to be an artist for me because I sort of had gotten into this bad habit of only doing commissions when I was growing up, sort of thing. And I think those can be really draining. And I lost sight of that art's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be, you know, your story and you're supposed to like touch the world with your vision of what it means to be an artist. And I think in trying to reclaim that, I fell back in love with being an artist. So yeah, the transition actually I think was easier because I was jumping between the UK and Bermuda quite often. But in terms of being an artist, like I did not think post university that I would be sitting here full time as an artist at all.
You had said about you being an artist is like your story. That's so important because taking on commissions, you have to feed yourself, right? But
So
at the end of the day, it's important and so vital to get your voice out there. And I think it does take a bit of time to develop that and to figure out what it is that you want to say. And so COVID had an interesting way of sort of pushing that for a lot of people, like in many different ways. So thanks for sharing that story. I wanted to ask you how Bermuda impacts your work because there are a lot of different beautiful, amazing motifs that you add that come directly from your heritage as a Bermudian. If you could share a little bit about how Bermuda inspires your practice, how you root yourself in that identity and how that shows up in the work.
yeah, definitely. That's been more of a journey as well for me. So I think I didn't want to be an artist and then I decided I was going to try again sort of thing. And the first concept that I had, it was because I'd been living there for the first time in my adult life. I was so inspired by obviously the people and like just the surroundings. But the show, I think, or the concept was possibly relatively basic. Like it was more outside of myself. I was painting Bermudians doing regular things sort of thing. And I was elevating, in my opinion, like regular moments to, and I think just naturally as soon as you're painting something and like you're spending hours, connecting with the image and the people, it elevates the moment. But I think you constantly go through identity crises as an artist. You're sort of like, I don't know if you have it similar, but I like hate all my old work. Like I literally, if I could burn it all, I would. But I think that's like a natural cycle. All of the artists I'm around feel similarly. But I actually had a really interesting conversation with an artist because I work in sort of a big space with lots of different artists. And she had a Malaysian and UK background. And so she was sort of saying that like the more that she drew from her personal experience, the richer the work was. And honestly, her work was some of my favorite work I've seen in person from an emerging artist in a while. And I think I started then pulling more from, my grandparents moved to Bermuda like over 60 years ago. So I started going through like family albums and things like that. And I think the more I drew from like my personal lineage to how my family became Bermudian and got there sort of thing, I feel like the richer the work got. I also reintroduced like things like screen printing into it, and I think that just having that medium shift of painting and print together was helpful sort of thing. I can't seem to get away from Bermuda. I've had like that after my show, I sort of pulled back and was like, I don't know who I am as an artist. What should I do sort of thing. And I was pulling more, images from London and abstraction and things like that. And it only ever lasts a few months. And then I like somehow find my way back to doing something. I just think it's like so deeply entrenched in the way that I see the world, whether it's the colors I'm using or just I think it's impossible like to not if you've grown up somewhere like that or like you feel so connected. So it feels natural. I don't actually think it's a very conscious choice. It's just the imagery that I pull and the imagery I feel most connected to always tends to be images I've taken in Bermuda or pulled from, old archival family things, that sort of thing.
100%. I can totally relate. Because for me, being Bermudian is something that I'm investigating all the time in my work. And for me, it was moving to China that really sort of pushed me into looking into who I was as a person. So I can totally relate. It's the same. I can't get away from it either. I'm always thinking about that in the back of my mind. And I think it's also something too about like you said, when you grow up in a place like that, it's so rich and it's just sort of like ever present. But then when you actually like live somewhere else, because like we both live in the UK, right? When you live somewhere else, it's almost like that sort of distance between the place where you grew up and the place where you live. There's like a nostalgia that sort of exists there. Yeah. And it almost, you long for that place. And so it just naturally like shows up in the work.
I even had that. I was on a morning run and I just think it's the craziest thing that people don't like greet each other here. I think of it every time I run past someone sort of thing. It like really, really, it does create that longing because I just do think that Bermuda is like a special, special place.
100%. Yeah. One of those places, well, for me anyway, where like I could go anywhere in the world and I'm never moved as much as I am when I'm home. Like, when I'm home, I feel almost like a rooting, like I'm connected with the water, with the soil, with the people, with the food. It's like.
Yeah, I actually really miss the old airport because one of my favorite things was getting off the plane and smelling like the salt. And like now obviously you go straight through the tunnel, but like that is something I like miss. And as soon as I'm out of the airport, it's the first thing I think every time. And like I feel like my nervous system relaxes. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you're talking about like, your feeling or like how you relax. So I'm thinking a lot about like the senses and sort of like how that informs your practice because you did mention that color is a huge thing that you think about when you're making your work. And so can you talk a little bit about like how color specifically like informs your work because your color usage is so beautiful. It's rich, it's vibrant, and seeing your work definitely reminds me of home. Color is hard to do. So can you talk a little bit about how you perceive color and how that then is translated into the work?
I think it's one of those things that's natural and you only start realizing that you're doing it when you start seeing like the works together in a room. Like I feel like actually recently my color has changed a little bit. Like I don't even really know how to describe what's happened, but maybe it's become slightly less saturated in the sense of like it's not as rainbow. Like I feel like when I first started, everything was like almost like I threw color up onto like canvases, and I think, again, maybe it's the pushing yourself or trying to figure out new techniques and things like that, or whether I'm mixing in different mediums and things like that has changed my color theory slightly, but there's always that bright element that feels kind of like homey. I think I'm, again, actually now thinking about it now, I hadn't really thought about this. So like, this is a great question for me. But pulling, I think, from those vintage imagery, like, of my grandparents has actually really informed the way that I've been using color recently. It does feel like, pairing those kind of like vibrant colors with like more muted browns and grays and stuff like that, and almost using that color theory like in a really conscious way. I feel, yeah, I don't know. I think again, it is probably more subconscious than it is a conscious choice kind of thing. And I think just naturally, like, it's very difficult to not use color if you grow up on a vibrant island and that's your source material, especially like my foliage work and stuff like that. Like, that was instinctive kind of thing.
Oh my goodness, your foliage work is so lush. Like it's almost like you could feel the breeze whistling through the plants.
Thank you.
I love your work. And, was thrilled that during the Charmin Prize, our works were in conversation.
I agree.
I was really thrilled about that.
I was so excited because you actually were one of my favorite artists in the Biennale. I always like seeing your work because I feel like you're always surprised. Or it's always surprising. I think because you're a multidisciplinary artist, there's so many iterations of, it's more how your brain works. And I think over time, I've realized that like there's only so much a skill set can do in terms of painting and things like that. And so I think that the conversations, and this is where I think it's really important. I mean, it would be great if like any Bermudian artist could get into like an international space, because I think the conversations that they have like in London or in cities and things like that is much more about the context of the work and how it's less about the finished product, although every time it's beautiful. It's much more about the process of like how you get to that point kind of thing. And I always looking forward to seeing how, firstly, the consistency of how your brain works, but also then like in what way that manifests, because each time it's always so different.
It surprises me as well, to be honest with you. And what's interesting, I've been trying to, even though the work is so different, because I find that like the way that my mind works, like I have so many ideas for things that I want to do. This week I'm interested in sewing. This week I'm interested in painting. Now I'm interested in collage, and I'm just like, okay, what is it that I want to say? But what I've found is that there is a common thread. Like even though the work shows up differently, I think I've found a way that communicates the one thing that I'm trying to get at, no matter what the medium is. And I think that that's super special, because that's pushed me not only as an artist, but also just as a person. Like I've,
for sure,
found a voice that I feel like is strong.
As a viewer, for sure, like that's definitely where like I look forward to seeing your work. But also I always say this to people, like when people say it's an art practice, like I always like hone in on that word, like it's practice. Like you're supposed to be playing and experimenting and practicing. You're never, and as soon as you get like so good at something, you should pivot. In my opinion.
That's how I feel. That's exactly how I
feel. As soon as you nailed something, pivot and try something new, because how your brain works. And usually makers have a skill set with their hands kind of thing. So like I think that's the work I'm always drawn to. I think I have ended up being much more drawn to multidisciplinary artists, just because I think it's much more interesting hearing their story and hearing how they got to that stage, rather than seeing a painting that's beautiful. Like there's only so much you can get. And I think that's what I meant when I started, is like it's taken me a long time. I think it takes a lot more confidence to be able to like stand in your voice, like you said, and develop something strong. But when I started, I was only like 22 when I decided I was going to retry art again, and it was so scale orientated that I wanted people to think I was a good artist, which like before I could be an artist, if that makes sense. Like I think I needed to develop that skill set, and that was like a mind game more than anything else. And then I think once I had gained confidence that, okay, which isn't the best way to do it, I don't suggest this, because it's like so like hinged on external validation. I don't think that's a good way about going about art, but it takes time and confidence to build that, so that you don't care as much what people think about it, because it's much more rooted in something authentic. And it just takes time time and age and wisdom and experience to develop that sort of thing. But I think it comes through a lot in your work, so I've always looked up to it in that sense.
Oh, that's amazing. I love what you said there in terms of just like, sort of the time that it takes to develop your voice and be confident in that, because even for me, like when I first began, I wasn't trained at all. And
Right.
so I really felt like I was also trying to prove like I'm a good artist, like I know I
Yeah.
am. And it's so interesting because it's like, and then there was like a discrepancy because I'm saying in my mind like I know I'm a good artist, but I
Mhm.
haven't done anything to show that. And so,
Right.
it's almost like the work that you make has to like play catch up in a
Totally.
way. It's like the physical manifestation of like what you have in your mind like actually has to like marry
Yeah,
up. And so like you said, it just sort of like takes time, and over time like you just continue to develop, like the next project gives you more confidence. So
definitely.
I can totally relate 100% to what you're saying about that. You actually also said something interesting about a practice, right? Like having an arts practice. It's something that is a continual thing. You have to continue doing it, practicing, right?
Mhm.
And I also love what you said in terms of making sure that it's about play,
Mhm.
because the studio should be like a laboratory, right? Like for you
Totally.
to experiment and to try
Yeah.
different things.
To be
So I
terrible for every one thing that's amazing.
yeah, absolutely. But I really want to sit with the word practice because I think that life is that. Life is a practice. And so I want to dive into a little bit about some of the other practices in your life
Mhm.
that sort of inform your artistic practice. Like, do you have any like maybe rituals or like bonus practices or anything that you are committed to that uplift and help you to continue making the work, like maybe on a daily basis or a weekly basis, just other practices that inform your work?
Yeah. I would say I'm quite a spiritual person, so like I do a lot of journaling. I'm almost someone who like I'm a big overthinker, and so I think getting that onto paper is usually like a good way of organizing my thoughts. Equally, I have like a running notes app on my phone of like ideas for paintings and things like that, just because I think it's like so important when like something pops into your brain to like grab it, just like whack down.
100%.
Sometimes it's awful when you look back at it, but sometimes it's like a little piece of magic.
Yeah.
I'm big into exercise as well. I think as soon as funnily enough, was having a conversation with my flatmate earlier, where there's always a correlation when if I stop working out or stop exercising for my mental health, like I'll just be like, "Ugh, I'm just like not feeling very motivated, or everything seems to drop off. So,
Mm.
and I mean, you'll know this more than anything, but being an artist is a very difficult path to choose. I
Yeah.
kind of was joking saying that it's like you're constantly putting yourself through rejection therapy, like, or, where it's like, or like
Yeah.
exposure therapy, that's what it is. Like where it's just so wildly out of my comfort zone most of the time. You don't really make nearly as much money as my corporate friends. So it's like very difficult to not feel like you're behind sort of thing because you've just chosen like a completely different, you're on a totally different racetrack. But when you're
Yeah.
constantly surrounded by people that, have chosen maybe like a slightly more, like there's a corporate ladder to climb. Whereas I always say like, it's like going on one of those snakes and ladders where you like get closer and then you drop down and you have a good year and you have a
Yeah.
bad year. And so I think it is really important to have like you need mental strength in order to navigate those things because it is constantly like a battle of if you're good enough or if you're, if you're having a bad month is a reflection on you as an artist. Like you need to be strong enough to realize that those outside things aren't a factor into your creative pursuits. And it's a lot easier said than done, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And this year alone for me has been, very tough.
It's scary.
Um,
It's super scary.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you make the work, right? And you can have like a good show, you can have a great year, or
Mhm.
you can get a commission, or you can sell work to a collector or something. You have these sort of moments that it's like, okay, yes, like I'm
Yeah.
on the right track. And then it's like, dang, it's pretty dry
Yeah, and
out
then you're in the
here.
desert and you're like desperate for water and you're like, huh, you gonna give me a glass of water?
100%. And it
Yeah.
happens so much. And so, honestly, like you said, I completely agree. Choosing the path of an artist, and it could be any type of art, like not
Yeah,
even just
it is.
visual art, but just being an artist in general, you have to have tough skin because
Totally.
the amount of rejection, I mean, I've like even just this month specifically, like I've probably gotten about 10 rejections for things that I've just this month alone. And I'm just like, geez, I'm thinking that I'm getting closer. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, no, not right now. And so I want to talk to you about that. How does your grounding within yourself, you as
Mhm.
a person, how much does that impact how you pivot or how you're able to quickly bounce back after those rejections or after moments where you may not have sold anything for a while or you have creative block, how you work through that?
I would say it's definitely a work in progress. I think this is probably where my mom comes in, where I'll call her
Yeah.
crying. She's super supportive. I think again, it's a time thing. I think I think I'm almost 4 years into being full time. I now understand that it's like this a lot sort of thing. And so I think it's just as important navigating those highs as it is those lows because now I anticipate the lows. Think that
Yeah.
my job's going to go like this, like other people's. I think again, it's more of a, it's probably more of a self thing than it even is about the practice because painting is when I feel most myself. Like if I'm feeling good about like the work, and I always say that like when I it's going well. Say I have like a great month, I sell like 3 paintings or something. There's projects going on. I feel like I'm cheating at life. I'm like, oh, I got it figured out. Like I'm doing what I love the most in the world and I'm making money. And then, like you said, you're in the desert and you're like, oh, this is less fun now. I think it's keeping true to knowing that you've chosen a path that's less followed, but equally, like, it's so deeply rewarding and it's so important. Artists are so deeply important to the world, in my opinion. Obviously, as an artist, that sounds a little self-indulgent, but I mean, they create everything, and the way artists see the world is really important, which is why I was saying that that's the thing I'm most interested in when I'm going to shows and things like that. The rejections are difficult, but I would say it's the financial hardships where you're actually really worried about how you're going to pay rent. That's much more of a mental battle because it's more in the forefront. I think that the financial hardships is a more tangible, difficult thing to like come into contact with than rejections of like shows and things, which feel like, you know, something you're hopeful for that would help progress your career. But I think it's much more difficult to navigate, like wondering how you're going to pay rent. I think it's important to like maybe get a side hustle or think about financially how you can support yourself so that the work doesn't suffer. I'm at a stage now where, like you, I don't know if the art market's down or like what's going on at the moment, but like I definitely feel like people are not buying as much or not buying like, you know, the bigger pieces, which obviously were the things supplementing my income more commercial. I think that's always like a line that's difficult for artists. And like
100%.
I think that happens early on. Like you would hope that towards the end of your career, you're not thinking at all about if something's going to sell because you have a pool of collectors. But when things are hard at the, like I'm trying to think, okay, like how much can I push this piece so that like I think it will sell, but like it's so not like what I want to be doing right now.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I think the financial implications of being an artist is something that has to be considered because that's what, to be honest with you, I feel like that's the thing that makes the path maybe the hardest. So I
Definitely.
totally agree with you. And like, even for me, it's been tough as well. My journey has been, you know, like you said, up and down, up and down. And so supplementing income, I think, is really important. And I think one of the things that's undervalued is getting a side hustle or doing other things. So like I have a job where like I do facilitation, I do like arts workshops and stuff like that as well. Like just
Yeah.
to, you know, pay the bills. So I also don't have to worry about, gosh,
So it
how
doesn't
am I gonna,
complex the work too much as well.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I had so much resistance about in
Mhm.
terms of that when I first sort of ran into this like whole financial thing about being an artist was I was thinking in my mind that, okay, if I have a job or I have a side hustle or something else that's supplementing my income, then am I less of an artist or,
Really.
you know, am I full time? You know,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this or like contemplating that or like even the idea of like what does it even mean to be like a full-time artist, right?
Mhm. 100%.
I even think that that's something to think about or to consider or to ask ourselves, and it's 100% okay
Yeah,
to make a
definitely.
living, you know, like doing other things so that you can or there, so that there isn't the pressure to, oh, I must sell this thing so that I can eat this month.
I agree. And I think it's very
Yeah.
difficult to navigate as well. Like I always find this is that it's not something where if you work harder, you're gonna be more successful necessarily. Whereas I think in other traditional jobs, especially in the corporate world, you work harder. Like there is this sort of like map that's been laid out. And like if you do these things, you will progress sort of thing. And I think that that's potentially where at least I've experienced burnout because, if things aren't going
Yeah.
well, naturally you work harder because you're passionate about it and you want it to do well. And then if you're not seeing any rewards from you putting in an extra like 10, 15 hours a week, you're burning out and I think it's that sort of like, that's the real mental battle where it's like, what more can you do sort of thing. You have to get like almost creative with life. And I think there's like no shame in having a side hustle or having something separately that like takes some of that pressure off because the more pressure you add, the less it happens, sort of thing. It's like that law of detachment. Like as soon as you detach, but
Mm.
how can you detach when, financially, like you're being a realistic human being where, you can't just like detach and be like, I'm going to be fine. It's like, no,
Yeah.
there are bills that come at certain points. And I think that it's really important to have those kinds of conversations that are more practical about being an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I went to graduate school, and that was actually something that we didn't talk about when we were studying. I think I learned like different techniques. I learned
Like the
about
romantic side of
theory.
art.
Yeah, but not really like the practical skills of actually like being an artist. And I've found in my experience that it's so much more like being an entrepreneur.
Oh,
And
100%.
um,
Owning a
yeah, absolutely. And
totally.
so what you had said about, this idea of getting creative, like creating the life, I think that is the thing, right?
Mhm.
It's like you're not just like creating the work, but you're also creating your life. And I think that's why choosing the path to be an artist is so special.
I
And
agree.
so for you, like, what does it mean to live a creative life? Like, what does that really mean for you?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think as I've gotten older and started doing art a little bit more, I've realized to me the word like creativity and authenticity like go sort of hand in hand. I think I've realized that creativity is more about your imagination and, like I said, I now separate the idea of a skill set as an artist versus creativity. I think those things actually can work against each other sometimes. I think that I'm very grateful. I have one of my best friend, Adam, like he actually works in the studio with me and his work's very different. He does mainly figurative work, beautiful, and like he's so authentically an artist, the way he thinks and things like that. And he has been instrumental in helping me grow because he's been so annoying. And he'll like appreciate me saying that because he's been that kind of like gnat in my ear that's been like, it's really tight or like you're a perfectionist and stuff. And like actually having that feedback has been really helpful because sometimes I actually think that certain audiences really enjoy that kind of like tight, really like, everything's painted perfectly. And like I said, that was maybe at the beginning when I started what I was looking for, that validation of people saying like, oh, like you're super talented. And I was like, ka-ching, I'm an artist. But actually it takes a lot more confidence and courage like to pull back and find your own style and figure out like how you can add something different to the world. And that imagination is what I would suggest other artists to be pushing when it comes to it. It's less even about the finished product in my eyes, which is why I think playing and practicing is so important. And that's where the real creativity comes in. Yes, the skill set is the foundation and the basis, but I think if you get too stuck into how something looks or painting a portrait like beautifully, like yes, it's beautiful, and like again, this is a subjective opinion. I think there's value in all art sort of thing, but the stage I'm in right now is I'd be much prefer to see, I don't know, something insane than like a really beautifully painted portrait, just because I think there's a limitation on how much you can have a conversation about that. And that to me is like the creativity element sort of thing. Like I want to know how your brain works, which is why I love your work so much.
Yeah.
Even the room that you created, it's like it's an extension of space. You're making a space and installation where it's not just a piece. You're now like creating environments and things like that. That's so interesting to see someone's brain do that. And I think that to me is what creativity is. And that again, it takes like authenticity, confidence, and time to develop that. Like I think to be gentle with yourself as an artist and appreciate all the stages that you go through is really important, but also be gentle with artists when you're looking at their work, you know, like I think you can never control what people project onto your work, and I've had to learn that over time. That's been probably the hardest lesson I've had to learn. But when you're young, like I took things way more personally if people didn't understand or had a negative reaction and things like that, which I have dealt with. And yeah, I think it's about like the more confidence you build, the more you realize that your voice is the most important one. That's what you're adding to the conversation.
I love what you said about, just sort of like leaning into your own unique voice because we're all so different and like we could be born in the same place, but our life paths are completely different. So our perspectives would be different. So the work is going to be that. So we really don't need any more artists who are like carbon copies of others. We need people who are stepping out into the world and like, carving out their own path. And so I think that's really vital. I'm just so thrilled to see your work develop. You leaning into screen printing. I love printing so much.
It's so fun.
I haven't been trained in printing, but I did a residency once and there was a print fellow. And so I did like a couple of workshops and stuff like that. But it's such a beautiful medium that I think when it's embedded into the work, it just adds so much dimensionality. And I really love to see that you are developing that and bringing these different sort of nuances into your work. So it's not just painting, it's mixed media, it's like other things too. And I think that, it's really strong. I think the direction that you're heading, it's really strong. And I love to see that and, love to see your progression over time. And as a fellow Bermudian artist, like I'm so happy to see young people like stepping up and like doing creative things. And, I just love for all of us to be in community really, because, we're such a small
people.
Yeah. And then like specifically as Bermudian, like,
Definitely.
There's only so many of us,
100%.
So
Yeah.
I just love that, you have answered the call because it's a very difficult call to answer to be an artist.
Yeah.
And it's been a pleasure like to see your practice grow for sure.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, coming from you, that really means a lot because I think seeing, like I've said, the way your brain works and the manifestations of how that develops each time has been really exciting for me. And it really inspired me to equally try and push myself out of my comfort zone and make things that, feel like maybe like a bit weird at the beginning, but then they turn into something really like special and beautiful. And understanding that there's space for all of these things has been like so vital for me. And yeah, I'm obsessed with the Bermudian art community. I think there's a real like resurgence happening at the moment. Like there's real life in it and like vitality. And I think there's a lot of interest and it's stemming from the young people, which I think is really exciting. People are creating these opportunities and seeing things. And I'm excited to see like sort of how it develops over the next few years kind of thing.
Me too. I mean, it's been exciting, I think, to be a part of it. But to see other artists who are young and ambitious and like motivated and like, come up with such like amazing ideas, it's inspiring. It's like equally inspiring. And like you said, there sort of does feel like a resurgence or like a renaissance sort of happening.
Yeah, exactly.
You're contributing to the conversation as well. I just want to ask you before we wrap it up, if there are any exciting things that you have on the horizon, any thing on the calendar that you would be happy to share or talk about, or maybe like something you're working on at the moment.
I do. I have a show actually at Masterworks in December with Abby Box. Yeah, we're doing like a dual show, which is really exciting. So
I love Abby's work as well. So good. That's actually, I didn't even think about that. So the fact that you guys are in a show, that's so amazing because you both do color really well.
I kind of like pitched the idea sort of to Abby. I like had never met her before and I loved her work. And I also thought what I love about London, and I mean actually, mainly London because this is where I am, but when you go to shows, I think that the conversation, the curation and things like that is really interesting. And I feel like, there's lots of group shows in Bermuda and there's lots of solo shows, but there's not often like lots of dual shows, which happens a lot more
Yeah.
in cities kind of thing. And I think that that creates a really interesting conversation because, you know, you're putting two artists together on purpose. I feel like we have similar like subject matters, but the way we approach it is very, very different. But there's similarities within our work.
I'm so
Kind of thing.
excited about that for you
And we both
guys.
have backgrounds as well. So I'm more screen printing and she does more mono printing. So I
Yeah.
think there's going to be like painting and printing. I don't really know. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, because there are many different ways that the conversation, can take shape. 'Cause like you said,
Yeah.
there's printing, but then you guys are doing this like cross-cultural thing, like where,
Yeah.
her background is British and you're Bermudian, and then you're living in the opposite place. So that's amazing. Yeah, I think that was a really well thought out choice
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, for the both of you actually. And I'm excited for you and congratulations.
Yeah. Gonna work towards that. And then, yeah, we'll see from there kind of thing. I might move out of London for a while. I'm considering moving. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll see.
In the UK or somewhere else?
I think I'm gonna move to Bali actually at the end of September.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I just got back.
Why'd you want to do that? Like, what's the story behind that?
What's the story? I have always, well, I've been in London now for 10 years, and I think I've been itching for a change for a while, sort of thing. I don't know what it was about Bali. I went like last month for 2 weeks to just suss it out because a lot of my friends were like kind of irresponsible to move somewhere you've never been, and I was like, that's a fair point. So I went and I just like fell in love with it. Like I think the vegetation is quite similar to Bermuda.
Yeah.
It's like a different vibe. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna move for like 2 months, finish my show there basically. So I'll finish my
Right.
smaller works there, which also I think will be like interesting kind of painting in like a totally different space. I wonder if it will work.
Yeah, that's
don't know.
amazing.
And then yeah, go from there. I just needed a change.
A
Honestly,
change. Yeah.
London is also just so expensive. I kind of wanted to get off the hamster wheel, and I was like, something's got to give. Either I need to get like a full-time job and do this on the weekends, or I need to like find somewhere that is more within the means of, living. And I didn't really want to compromise on being a full-time artist, but like it's been a rough year in terms of
I'm
finding.
telling you, it's been rough. It really has.
A lot of people I've spoken to which is slightly comforting, that it feels like it's probably like movement thing rather than a personally about your art thing. But yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, and and to be fair as well, is like I feel like it's tough in all sectors. And then also the economy globally is just it's tough for everybody right now. So I think for the art world, we're seeing it even more too because when it's difficult financially, the first thing that you're buying is not art, right?
Exactly.
Like you're buying food first, like
Totally.
necessities first. So yeah.
Which is crazy to me. I'm like, it's totally a necessity. What do you mean? No, I know exactly. So yeah, that's sort of the plan for the next few months kind of thing. Just gonna finish off like the big works, I think, here.
Okay.
And then go from there. But yeah, I'm excited.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I love Southeast Asia.
Yes.
When I lived in China, I traveled. I didn't go to Bali, but I did go to a few different places in Southeast Asia, and
Beautiful.
interestingly had like real spiritual moments
Really?
there. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
moments that like really sort of shaped who I am, not only as an artist, but also just as a person. And so I hope that you get some of those moments because it's really magical.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah. I hope so for you.
I do feel also like I've did a little bit of traveling last year, and I had a similar feeling of Bermuda, where it's like there's like a level of peace kind of thing that comes from like, maybe it's just like the ocean or the vegetation, or it feels similar, but like there's a clarity that comes there. And so I've never made work somewhere where I feel like that, like in Bermuda, I'm always in like a makeshift, I'm moving my mom's dining room table and, it's like tripping over it sort of thing. I've never had like a studio somewhere where it felt like I've had that feeling before, and I do really think it might inform my work in an interesting way. So I'm excited to see like how that progresses.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So is it like a permanent move, or is it like maybe like a
I'm permanently
3 month
moving
thing?
myself out of London. Whether I stay there, I'm not too sure, but like I think unless everything goes like horribly wrong, and like in 6 months time, I'm like, let's forget that I ever said that.
Yeah.
But I think it will be relatively permanent for the next like couple of years kind of thing until I want to like,
Wow.
yeah, well, we'll
That's
see.
amazing. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to see
Yeah.
what that's gonna do to your work.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna like explode the work, you
I
know?
hope so as well, because I've always been wanting to like almost like use some of like sometimes I'm sad that I don't have like the materials in terms of like the leaves and stuff to like physically,
Yeah.
try things. So it will be interesting to see like how experimental you can get there kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh, that's so exciting. So you're on a new journey, and yeah, I'm just wishing you all the best with that. Like being in China changed my life.
List as well. Like I might have to.
Yeah, I think it's gonna like totally change you viscerally, like as a person, which will
Yeah.
definitely inform the work for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
So
really, really
exciting.
excited actually. Just clinging on.
Congratulations on that. And you know what? I also think like it takes so much courage and bravery to just be like, you know what, fit, like I'm just gonna
Mhm.
like pack up my stuff and just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to do that and just to like
Yeah.
set up shop somewhere, you know?
Which is, I also think it's probably linked to that traveling that I never actually got to do when I like I've always had that.
Yeah,
I was always wanting to solo travel. I think it's such a beneficial thing to do. Like you really put yourself out of your comfort zone and make a new base somewhere. So
yeah,
yeah, I feel like if I didn't do it, I would always regret it.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And so you're in your mid-20s, right?
I'm 27.
Okay, yeah, it's like right on time. It's
Yeah.
like right on time. When I turned 25, I was like, okay, F law school, I'm moving to China and I'm becoming an artist.
I
So
love.
it's,
Was
yeah, it's
everyone,
sort of just,
was your whole family like, what's happening? Like, was everyone like sounding alarm?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like what's going on? Like, what the heck? You had a scholarship and now you're just gonna like up and leave that and just
See, but the amount of courage
become an
that,
artist?
yeah, that's like also like, I feel like even having that fire from the get-go would like make you so much more, like, you're not going to quit at that point. Like,
Yeah.
if you had it so close, like, I feel like it wasn't even a fork in the road. You were like on the road and you were like, no, no, I'm going to detour.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just gonna go over here and that's what I'm
I was
doing.
gonna ask that. What was the catalyst behind that? Like, did you always want to be an artist if you weren't classically trained or?
So the thing is, it's like I don't know. I was going through like a moment where I would be like in class, I would be trying to figure out how I was gonna get money to buy art supplies. I would be
Mhm.
distracted. I would be sitting there literally just like drawing or like doodling or like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I have this idea. Like I just always found myself thinking about the things that I wanted to make. Like I
Mhm.
just had like a desire to make, and it's interesting because prior to that, like I wasn't really making anything, but it was
Mhm.
like I had this like inner knowing that okay, I'm an artist. And so what I had mentioned earlier about like the discrepancy between knowing that you're something and not seeing it manifest physically,
Yeah.
it was that for me. Like I felt like, okay, I know that I'm an artist, but I don't have any work. It's like, how am I gonna say that I'm an artist where I have this feeling where I know that this is like for me, but
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything about it. To be honest with you, I had a panic attack. That's really
Okay.
what happened. Yeah, and I was just like, okay,
The
this
world wakes
life.
you up in that way. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
here's
just
the
like, what is
protocol.
life?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just really felt like to myself, I could not live my life knowing that this is a deep desire that I have, that's something that I literally comes up for me every single day, and I
Hmm.
didn't listen to it or I didn't at least try it. And so
Yeah.
when I quit everything, it was like, okay, I'm an artist, I'm quitting everything and I'm gonna give it a go, but I'm gonna
Mhm.
give it a year. It was
Okay.
that. I told myself I was just gonna give myself a year and see how it goes. And then I was like, okay, this is like sort of working out. And I
Right.
was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself, another year. And then so like gradually I
It
was
was
just
still
like,
a building block.
yeah, yeah, a building block sort of thing. And then 3 years into sort of being like self-taught and just like traveling, that's when I decided to get my master's in
Okay.
contemporary art. Yeah. Because that was like, okay, I'm really in this and I'm serious about this. So let me figure out something like how to be trained
Right.
in some way, shape, or
Which you
form.
actually
So,
do kind of need, like the art world can be really stuffy
yeah.
about stuff like that. And like, I think that's
Yeah.
like I eventually want to do a master's because I know like the way that positions you is really important. But yeah, that's like definitely something you kind of need, which is,
Well, the thing is, I contemplated whether I should go back and get a bachelor's because my bachelor's is unrelated. It's in public
Right.
health, which is completely different. So
It's kind of a cool story though.
yeah, I've lived a couple lifetimes.
Lived like 100%. Also, have you ever
Yeah.
read the book? Sorry, this is a total tangent. Have you ever read the book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza?
No, but I am familiar with Joe Dispenza's work though,
Because
about
I
like reprogramming the
describing
mind.
is his version of manifestation, where it's like you live as if something's already happened, like you're grateful for the fact that you are
Yeah.
an artist before you are, and the universe doesn't know the difference between the physical and the like, your internal world, and so you really just like build that.
100%. I completely agree. Yeah, I'm familiar with his work. I've done like a couple of his meditations and stuff.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, because I like love him, and what you describing sounded so much as if you had like sort of cheated the system.
And I think it is the way that you cheat the system. Like it's magic, right?
Yeah,
Like you have to think it first before like you can
really
experience
believe it
it.
and like be grateful for it, and then it happens.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, then
All the things rush forward. Like,
grow.
the
Exactly.
people, the opportunities, the experiences, the money, all of the things they come. And so I tend to have to remind myself of that
Yes, things are not going
when
well.
yeah, things are tough. Yeah.
I agree. I think that that has been like another really big thing when we were talking about like what you do is like that manifestation of like trying really, really hard not to get bogged down by like what's going on right now, because I know that that will just block anything coming in, sort of things.
Yeah.
That, but that's a bit more like spiritual and like woo woo. So I didn't know if I should say that because I didn't want to sound like a
Oh
total nut.
no, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, it's a bit woo-woo over here.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel
Sorry,
like
but that's like the
you
way
have
you
to
are.
be delusional.
Yeah, you
You
have to
have
be
to be
neutral.
delusional
Yeah,
in order for
honestly.
anything to work.
Truly, I actually had like a really funny experience, which I'll say to you again. I just sound like a crazy, but my friends laugh at me all the time. But I was in the hallway and I'd never spoken to this artist before. He must have been in his like 50s. And he stopped me and he was
Yeah.
chatting to me and he was like, "So, like, how's it going?" And I was like, "Yeah, good." And he's like, "Any shows?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "When?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And he was like, he's like, "So where are they?" And I was like, "I don't know that either. But like, there is one coming in." And that day I got an email about the Masterwork show.
That's
I
amazing.
know, and I was like, that's like with confirmation that the dates had like worked out, sort of thing. And I was like, haha.
Yeah, that is so
But
good.
I sounded like he was just laughing and like slowly walking away. And I was like, I sound crazy.
No, but that's how you have to be
Yeah,
honest.
you
I
do, you
think
really do.
if you're gonna choose this path, you have to be a
You
little
have to
like
be like a little bit crazy, 100%.
100.
But I felt
Definitely.
so crazy and I wanted to like, but now every time he sees me, he doesn't talk to me because I wanted to be like, I got the show. But I think
Oh,
he like,
really? He's like,
you're
okay,
weird.
this girl
Yeah.
is weird.
He like always will like walk really fast past me. And I'm like, oh no, I've scared him
Oh,
away.
that is so funny.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy.
But that's okay because you know what? Like maybe he's not one of your people because you
Yeah,
repel
I know,
people who are
totally.
not. Yeah,
Gotta like match the delusional.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
absolutely, absolutely. Phoebe, thank you so much for joining.
No,
It's been
thank you. It's
such a
been so fun.
pleasure chatting with you today.
Yeah, I was really nervous, but this was super nice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to tell you that I love your work. I
Thank
want to
you.
reiterate that. And, I want us to stay connected. You have my email. I mean, we're DM friends
Yeah,
now at
definitely.
this point.
Yes,
So anytime, like, you want to chat about anything, anytime anything, I'm here
I
as a
appreciate
resource
that.
and really, and also as a friend too. Thank you
Definitely
for
vice versa
joining.
as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, can you let everybody know like where they can find you online?
Yeah, of course. So my Instagram handle is Phoebe Hughes Art, and then my website's just phoebehughesart.com.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. Thank you for listening to Artifacts, where we explore the art of creative living. I'm your host, Jade Hassel. If today's conversation moved you, inspired you, or sparked something within you, share it with someone who might be interested and who might need it too. You can connect with me on social media at hassle_free or on my website at www.jadehassel.com. Or you can join my print club. Until next time, keep creating, keep feeling, and remember, art affects everything. See you next time.